Good
Hi,
morning.
good afternoon, good morning.
Oh, good afternoon. This is I.
Time zones are confusing.
All right. I'm just checking to make sure my video and mic are working.
Yep, I can hear you and I can see you, so I will take it that is working.
Okay,
It's
excellent.
nice actually meeting you for so long. We've been in so many groups together and we've never like met at all, even virtually.
I know. I think this is great. And you've actually been very helpful. Let's see. It looks like Mohammed's mic is muted.
Yeah,
So,
everyone feel free to unmute. I'm pretty sure we're all grown up enough to not speak over each other, so
but you're right, Aisha, we have been in so many groups together, I guess, over the past year.
yeah.
So
I've actually been in so many groups which even did meetups, but the time zones were so confusing that it was like I've never actually been able to meet with anybody in any of my groups at all.
well, this is great. Maybe this will be the first of many.
Yeah,
Um, maybe there will be others that have additional skills that would like to share it
yeah.
with those of us like me that are beginner or almost beginners with compositing or other photo
Yeah.
editing skills.
I'm gonna keep my screen sharing off one sec because I forgot to open a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna
Okay.
open it and then turn on my screen sharing. I've never done anything. I've only taught one class ever before, so I'm a little unprepared.
Well, you're ahead of me. I haven't done any. At least not at least not on Zoom.
I literally taught one the last week, which was the first one, which was not even about Photoshop. So I am new to this. Uh, Give me a sec. I'm also just gonna wait for a few minutes and let more people join before I actually begin. So,
Okay.
because a lot of people said they would be coming, but I think is it early for you guys, like in the morning, for you USA folks?
Well, in the
Yeah,
US on the East Coast, it's 9 a.m.
Oh, so not very early.
Oh,
in
it's not,
Arizona, it's
not
6
too. Judy, it's 6.
a.m.
We're
or 6 o'clock.
a.m. Yeah,
so Aisha,
that's
while
why
you
I'm
get
in my
set
room.
up, Aisha, while you get set up with your slides,
Yeah.
maybe if each person that's here would just tell us where they're from, just so we know how
Yeah, that's
far.
cool. Yeah, we can run a round of introductions too.
So I have Judy at the top of my screen. So Judy, where are you from?
Prescott, Arizona.
Oh, Arizona. Okay, so it's even
Judy,
earlier.
I like your background, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that was
Than...
taken in Arizona. We've had a really great monsoon season here, and the sunflowers have been just incredible. We had just like a super bloom of sunflowers.
Oh,
I took it in Williams, Arizona. It's just they go on forever. They're just fields and fields of Arizona
oh.
sunflowers. So,
I grow a few sunflowers in my home, but I'm kind of bad at photographing them.
I feel like I've got a halo now.
You're wearing a flower crown.
Move
I like
over so you can see the flower.
Hey, it's a pretty flower.
Jan, where are you from?
Well, I mean, I grew up in the US on the East Coast, but I've lived in Athens, Greece for about 30 years now. So I'm from Greece.
Oh, you're joining us from Greece?
I am, where it's 4
Very-
o'clock in the afternoon. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, you're 1 hour ahead of me. Congratulations. Everybody else is behind me.
And Elizabeth, where
Hi.
are you living? Where are you
Hi,
now?
I'm Betsy Klepper, and I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Oh,
So
okay.
Elizabeth, we've
It's
been
not-
in groups together as well, right?
yeah,
we've
we
never
have
met.
in a couple. So it's nice. I was delighted to hear you doing this. Thanks for sharing. I'm super new to Photoshop and love this kind of thing. So I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Megan, where are you joining us from?
Yeah, I'm phoning in from Melbourne, Australia, where it's 11 o'clock at night. Apologize for the bags, but it's pretty late. So
Oh,
I'm
goodness.
excited
Wow,
to learn some Photoshop stuff though, so I'm
That
staying
is
up.
some dedication, Megan. I salute you. I would never stay up at 11 o'clock for a Photoshop class.
I'm in my bathrobe, so
Okay. I hope you're comfy at least.
I think that's great. I love that we're from all over.
Yeah.
And is it Tanya?
Yeah, that's me. I'm a bit quiet. The whole family is asleep. I'm sitting in California at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Oh,
You're also
Where-
dedicated, man.
Whereabouts?
There might be kids up soon, so if it gets a bit noisy, I'll just turn off my microphone.
Okay. I personally don't mind if it's a bit noisy.
Whereabouts in California are you, please?
In Los Angeles area.
Oh, right.
We just moved here. I'm from Denmark, actually.
Oh,
so
right.
it's
Oh,
a bit
lovely.
chaotic at the moment.
It's quite
lots of
different.
changes.
Yeah. No, my brother's in San Diego.
Oh, nice.
And I'm in England, but I
Okay.
have a lot of connections in South Africa, and yeah, and when Aisha mentioned this and talked about the timing, it was me that sort of said, well, what time zone are you? Because I'm aware that we are all different time zones, but it's really good that we can all come together.
We
Thank
can
you.
all come together now.
Now. I still struggle with the differences between now and now.
It's
my-
impossible to know the difference. Only the person speaking can truly know what they meant.
Yeah, I'm part of a Facebook group that is for people that have moved abroad from South Africa. I mean, I just lived there for a few years, but I know I've still got family there, but I know this person through another group, and she added me, which was very kind of her. And it is quite amusing, a lot of the things that come out, and that is one of the expressions. So for anybody else who doesn't know, when you ask in South Africa, it's like, what time is it? And you talk about now or now or just now. And it is very much a South African thing. I don't know if anybody's come across it in any other part of the world.
Yeah, it's like, I'll get to that now. And only a South African would know that now means sometime in the future. And most of the time, it's never going to happen. So
yeah, that's the thing about Africa. It's like, and also when I've been on a few occasions, they've sort of said, oh, look, come on, now you're on South African time now. Or African time. So yeah, it means yeah, we're just chilled, we're laid back, just take it as.
My brother was telling me the New York minute is apparently a thing, which is like South Africa's now, as in it will never happen. Maybe
Oh,
the New
really?
Yorkers
Oh.
can confirm. I don't know.
A New York minute means like in the blink of an eye, very quickly.
Also,
Oh,
the
yeah.
opposite. It's the opposite of a
think-
no.
Right. I'm a native New Yorker, but have lived in 9 states, 25 cities, all in the US. And I'm currently in Durham, North Carolina.
So which is your favorite city?
Actually, Durham, North Carolina is. Although I do love New York. My heart is in New York, but I love to visit there. I love Broadway. I like the excitement of the city, but then I enjoy coming home to the peacefulness and slower pace. I kind of felt like I was a round peg in a square peg in a round hole in New York. My makeup, my being just didn't fit in with the really quick lifestyle there. And when I lived there, I couldn't afford to take advantage of all the wonderful things New York had to offer. I mean, the museums were free when I was a child. The zoos were free. So many cultural opportunities were free growing up. Now you have to pay to get into everything. But fortunately, now in retirement, I can go once a year and visit. And surprisingly, almost everybody I grew up with is still in New York City. So it makes visiting fun. I get to catch up, and each time I'm there, I'm 16 again, which I have not been in a very, very long time.
And then when you're tired of being 16, you can go back home and be not 16 again.
Yes, that is true. Let's see, we had a few more weeks. So spoke to Tanya, Rosemary. Dodie.
Hurry up, I'm Dodie Raycraft, and I'm also from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So in the Michiganders group with Betsy. Hi, Betsy.
Hello, good morning.
See, now a couple of years I would have been with you because I lived in Ann Arbor for 3 years.
Okay.
That
Sure.
was one of the places. So I
Grew up
guess
in Michigan, so
there are all these different groups I could have been part of. Another Kalamazoo. Mary?
I'm from Worcester, Mass.
Huh.
Where's
I was
that?
I was a neighbor for,
Massachusetts near Boston.
Oh, right. Oh, I've been to Boston. No, Chicago. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
did you say Worcester?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was in Brookline for 11 years. So we were
Oh, yeah. That's
right
like
on.
30, 40 miles. Boston's just far enough away that you can get there in an hour and you can get home. Because like New York, it gets a little crazy,
It does.
hectic.
But excellent hospitals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and beautiful, beautiful. If you photograph at night, they have the most beautiful city and bridges and lights on the water and the harbor, and it's amazing. So it's worth the trip.
Carol?
Hi, I'm actually from near Boston. I'm just out of Boston in Newton, Massachusetts.
What part of
Carol.
Newton?
We've been in groups
Sorry?
together too.
Newton Center or what?
Oh, you know, there's like 7 villages in Newton.
What village are you from?
I'm in Waben,
Oh,
which
Waben.
doesn't sound like Newton, but sounds like something out of anybody who's old enough or American who knows about Elmer Fudd. It sounds like that crazy Waben. So,
I know where Waben is. And Mohammed?
Hi, I'm from South Africa.
Oh, how's that?
Okay, there are 2 of us in South Africa.
It's good. It's great here.
Now, are there more of us? I only see 12.
Yeah.
people so
I mean, nobody else has joined yet, but maybe they'll trickle in later. I'm ready to go, so I think we can start.
Okay.
And if people
Great.
come in later, I mean, there were 60 people who said they'd be coming, but like at least 12 did show up.
I think once you said you would post a recording, people said, "Oh,
Yeah, they're like, let's just cop out. No, the
Oh.
previous class I did was on scientific art, and I got like I think more than a dozen people said that they'd show up, and like everyone was very enthusiastic. And I start the class, and guess how many people showed up? 2.
Yeah.
So I did a class with 2 people.
Well, that was very generous of you for giving your time. And thank you for doing this today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
much
nice.
appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can start. Let me where'd the screen sharing thingy go? Oh, I found it. There you go.
Good.
I'm sharing my screen.
Megan,
now.
I love your low-key background."
Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, there's a horse.
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing the horse?
Yes, yes.
Okay, the horse is just there for a placeholder, by the way. And also because I'm really proud of the background extraction I did on that. I had done this very long ago, and I was very much proud of the fact that I managed to extract his very hairs from the background. Anyway, so to begin with, I just want to go over in Photoshop. I assume you're all aware of like basic Photoshop interface and stuff. Okay, so I'm not going over like the very basics, like what are layers and how to use layers. I assume you've all used Photoshop at some level or the other, so you know that. So I just want to start with, mostly I want to focus on layer masks, which I think lots of people find confusing. And then I will just go over why we use them, why they're beneficial. I mean, why bother more like, and then just adjustment layers and stuff like that. So I'm in the wrong I'm supposed to be in this Untitled. Please ignore my naming skills. I know everything's Untitled, but I'm not usually that unorganized. So firstly, I want to go over what are layer masks, and I forgot to create a new document, which is what I'm supposed to be in. Let's make it a square. So just a quick demo on layer masks and what they are. So I like to think of layer masks as a window, and I know that's a stupid analogy, but give me a minute and I will, hopefully this will make some sense. That's also a stupid brush. Here's a better brush. So if we've got a window, and I cannot make a window, but anyway, this is a window, then we can pretend that there are curtains on this window. And let me put something behind because you can see out of a window. So let's put something behind the window. How can I fill this? There you go. Okay, let's put something behind the window. Anyway, let's forget the window. That's too difficult. Okay, so basically when I say window, what I meant was like that if for example I've got, let's just come over here. If I make a duplicate of this dude, and then I'm gonna turn this one, let's just go here. This one's easier. There you go. Sorry, please excuse my fumbling. I am rather confused right now. Okay, so with layer masks, I've got these two pictures. I've got the one on the right, which is above the one on the left. And these are my two cats when they were kittens and allowed me to take pictures of them, by the way. So say I want to get it such that the cat on the top is blending into the photo with the cat on the bottom. And I want them to like blend seamlessly in between. So I could just erase it, which is one way to do it. And I'm just going to grab my eraser. And I'm going to choose a very soft, big eraser. And I'm just going to erase the one on top, which is currently not erasing for unforeseen reasons. Because that's one on the bottom turned off. Okay, now it's erasing. So I could just erase the one on top and blend them in nicely.
So you've got, can I just ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the two cat pictures.
Yeah.
Side by side.
Yep.
And are you, are you trying to make it all one big
Yeah,
photo?
that's what my goal is. I want to try and make it so that they're one big thing. And so for the demo purposes, I'm using an eraser, which seems to do the job just fine because I can blend them in quite nicely. And I can get a seamless transition between my two cats. So
okay, what are you using on your feather, your round circle?
Your blend? it's just a default round brush. It is 100% feather, completely soft. There is no hardness to it. 0% hardness, just the default round one.
Okay.
Okay, so I want one of you to tell me why using the eraser to do this is a horrible idea.
I don't know. I always use the paintbrush.
Okay, the paintbrush we would use it on a mask, right? So what I did here was I just erased the layer itself.
Oh,
it's
okay.
destructive.
Yep.
It's destructive.
It's destructive, yep. So now say I accidentally erased my poor little cat's eye, and I somehow did not notice this blurring foot that I did, and I saved my document and I closed it. And when I go to see the JPEG I exported, I'm like, oh my word, there's a straight line running through my cat's eye. And I can't exactly do anything about it because I just saved it. And now if I were to turn this layer off and just throw in a solid black background so you guys can see, yeah, my cat is permanently defected now. And that is why using eraser is such a horrible idea. So I assume most of you would be aware of that, but let's bring in layer masks to save the day. So layer masks, when I meant that they're like a curtain, I like to think of it as a blackout curtain. So the darker the blackout curtain is, the less you can see off that layer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually.
So like you've got this layer mask window over here is your window itself. And then the darker the curtain you draw over it, the less you can see of the original layer. But if you accidentally put the curtain over his eyes, it's not that big of an issue because you can just put in a lighter version. Okay, I'm being a bit daft right now. I've been erasing my layer mask and thus I've been achieving absolutely nothing. in terms of non-destructiveness. Okay, let's do this again. I'm gonna draw my blackout curtains over this side where I've got the border. And if I accidentally black out my cat's eyes, I can just pull the curtain back again by painting over with white colors. And white and black are not the only colors. Layer masks support the entire shade of gray. And there's one shortcut in which you can, yeah, there you go. So this is how you can see your window. So the darker the color is, that is your blackout curtain, you can say. And the lighter the color is, that is no curtain. You can see the layer underneath it. So if I were to just draw a bunch of curtain over here, and then I can go back into the thing, you can see I've just drawn a curtain over this layer, and now my cat looks like it's got a weird growth out of its forehead. So I just remove that. So that is the main reason you'd want to use layers, is because they're non-destructive. They're very easy to manipulate. And also they give a whole lot more flexibility than just an eraser would, because you can play with the shades. You can use the gradient tool on it. If I just duplicate this real quick, you don't even need to use the brush. I'll just make a new layer mask. And if you grab the gradient tool, you can use the gradient, the normal default black and white gradient, and just drag it over. So remember, white is what shows, black is what hides. So you want to drag it from light to dark in this case, because I want the cat's excuse me, I want the cat on the right to be visible and the cat on the left to not, like the left side should get hidden. It looks very horrible now because there's a very fine gap between it, but I just want to show that you can use the gradient tool on it as well, which is like a step. It gives you so much more flexibility than just trying to manually erase everything. So that is like the main reason you'd want to use layer masks as opposed to simply erasing, is the destructiveness and also the flexibility. Then I want to also discuss, okay, before I go on I just wanted to show you guys that for this thing, I made a project which I thought we could try and go make, which is a composite, a serial composite of various photos from Unsplash. And I just put the composite together. So this is what I'm hoping we can work towards in the class. I'm not sure if we'll have enough time. So I'm just going to go over adjustment layers real quick. And this is like a sort of demo that will be bringing together all the techniques in various different ways, whether it be layer blending modes, adjustment layers, layer masks, everything comes together in this. You will milk Photoshop layers for what they're worth in making composites like this. So depending on the time, we can either shoot for this or a simplified composite if we do not have time for this. For adjustment layers is, have any of you dealt with adjustment layers before?
No.
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 Okay, so adjustment layers are, have you used this image adjustments panel where you can change the colors or the, you've all used that? Okay, so I'm just gonna go and make some adjustments to this picture. I think it can do with a little more pinks and some red tones. Let's make it drastically pink actually. And I'm gonna make the highlights slightly blue and the shadows really, oh wait, I moved the wrong one. The shadows really pink. And now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna give it some contrast changes. So I'm gonna amp up the contrast. And then I'm gonna change the hue and the saturation some. Okay. So you all are following, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now say I do not want the in the initial the pink color balance that I did. I want to remove that. So I'm going to go back into adjustments and I'm going to go in color balance, and now I have to manually try and fix it, because if I do undo, I could just Control Z the entire thing. But then the two adjustments that I made afterwards also got undone and I have to do them all over again. And if I don't want to do them all over again, there's no way I can selectively go back and undo the color balance where I made it all pink without undoing the two I did afterwards as well. So that is like a limitation of using the adjustments panel up here. So what do we use instead is, we'll use adjustment layers. So let me make another copy of this. And now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go and find the color balance here. And do you see how it dropped in another layer down here that says color balance 1?
Yes.
So now if I make any changes, now let me just do all of those again. I've got the color balance here. And now I'm going to go and add another adjustment layer, which is the hue or the saturation one. And I'm going to change the hue a bit, increase saturation, make it slightly brighter. And then I'm going to do the contrast one again. Okay. So if I fix my contrast, now say I do not want the pink one that I did initially, I'll just go in here and I'll turn the layer off. And I've got the saturation changes and the contrast changes. They're each on their separate layer. And whenever I want, I can turn off whichever one I want. I can always go back and change it. Say I made it too pink, I can make it less pink. I want it to be blue now, I want it to be green now. And I can completely non-destructively edit all of this. And at any moment that I decide I don't want a particular adjustment, I just turn it off and I can turn on a new one, or I can stack as many as I want, changing subtle things. So it's a non-destructive version of this panel, which is not working because of an adjustment layer.
I have a question for you, Aisha.
Yeah.
So you turned off certain layers because you were adjusting colors. So let's say you have certain layers turned off and you like the way it looks with those layers turned off.
Yeah.
When you go to save, does it save the image with or without the turned off layers?
It will save it with the layers turned off. Whenever you save it, it will save it exactly how you can see it. So if I were to save it now, it would be this very garish green color. If I were just to turn the layer off and now I'd save it, it would look like this.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
I thought I had assumed that it saved everything that was there.
No.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so with layers, the really great thing is you can have as many as you want, and you could turn them all off and just have one layer. And when you save it, you'll see the result with just the one layer. So you could.
Excellent, thank
you. The only negative effect having too many layers will have on your photo is your Photoshop file size will grow enormous. I could add 100 adjustment layers, turn them all off and save it, and it would not make any difference. That's why it's so non-destructive. And you can always go back and change anything later. Say I went and made this a little less garish again, make it a bit more pink, less blue. And then I move on. I decide that this is just how I want it, and I leave the document and I close it and I save it and I go away. I could come back a year later and decide that no, I don't like it so pink. I just have to open this up, make it less pink and save it. That's all I have to do. So another benefit also of using color adjustment layers, let me just delete all this because this photo looks horrible now. Another benefit of adjustment layers is you can use masks with them. You can use layer masks on adjustment level layers. So say, for example, I want this area of this fluffy part of the seeds to become slightly more bluish and this part to become slightly more pinkish. So what I'll do is I'll load up a color balance layer and I'll first make it more blue. I'll make it very extreme just to show, for example's sake. And then I'll go in my color balance in the layer mask for the color balance, and I'll fill it with black. And then using my brush, I will just paint over the sections that I want to be affected with white. Have any of you used Lightroom's I think it's called the adjustment brush in Lightroom?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is basically the Photoshop version of it, is you pop in an adjustment layer and you use its layer mask. So now I've got the bluish here, and now I want to increase the pinkish color over here. I'm just gonna drop in another layer, another adjustment layer, and this time make it pinkish, like very strongly pink, because I love pink apparently. And then I'll fill this one with black again. And this time with my brush, I will just paint over this section.
But
and so using...
Sorry, can I just ask, is there any way of turning on something so that you can see where you're painting over, or does that not matter? When you're sort of, sorry, I can't explain really. When you're moving your arrow, your feather, your brush.
Yeah.
And like I saw you doing it on the little feathers, the actual seeds of the dandelion.
Yeah.
It's sort of bluey white, but I couldn't actually see where you were specifically working. Okay. Does it matter?
As in, do you want to see like an overlay type thing of what part you selected?
Yeah, what the overlay that I'm working.
Like how it shows in Lightroom.
Yeah, like the brush in Lightroom.
Okay, so you can go into, you can click on the color thing, the layer mask,
Yes.
And if you go in view, I think it is view, or is it window? Or is it in here? Yeah, okay, you go in select and you click select and mask. Or you can press
Oh, right.
Alt Control R, and then it will show you
Yeah.
like this.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
that's
yep.
wonderful. Thank
yeah,
you
so
so
you
much.
can
Yeah.
you can go into the
Okay.
view and you can even change it. So you can get onion skin, which is very hard to see on this particular one. You can do the marching ants, like the Photoshop selection. You can use the Lightroom like overlay. You can adjust all of this. You can change the opacity of how bright, how light it is. I just want to leave that 50. You can change the color, everything. So you can go to I'll go with select and then select and mask. Another way you can
Okay, thank
access
you.
the same panel is just choose any of the tools which are for selection. Like I've got the Lasso tool here, and it brings up this box here, select and mask. So
Okay,
if you
thank
click
you.
on it, it'll bring the same thing.
Mhm.
It is quite helpful, especially when you're doing extractions, because it can be very hard to actually see the marching ants. So good point, I forgot to mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that covers adjustment layers. I'm trying to move a bit quick here so I can get to the compositing, which I think will be a bit more interesting. One more thing that I want to cover is layer blending modes. I'm going to delete these two because they look horrible. So layer blending modes are these options. Have any of you played with them before?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so you know what they do.
Sort of.
Mostly, yeah. There are lots of cheat sheets on the web of what each of them do. I can never remember the difference, and so I just cycle through them and see which one looks the best, which is probably
That's
not
what
the,
I do. I try each one and see how it looks.
yeah, it is probably not the most professional way of doing it, but still. So just for example's sake, say I want to introduce some very strong orange light over the dandelion on this side. I don't know why there'd be strong orange light, but anyway, assuming there wants to be, then I can just switch this one to color dodge, and yeah, maybe don't do that because it looks horrible. But if I were just to turn it to the normal blending mode, it looks like this weird orange spot. But if I turn it to color dodge, it adds like, it looks like it could have been light in some weird world.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's very exaggerated. But so you also notice that the darker sections have got a less exaggerated effect than the lighter sections, because it will it adjusts to whatever is beneath it in the layer underneath. So you can use a less strong version of it. Less strong blending mode is also Lighten and Screen. These sections basically make it that they interact with lighter colors. And then this one is more for, it darkens the section. So if I were to choose overlay, for example, and just choose a darker color, I could introduce shadows instead of highlights. So you can see how it makes them look like they're worsted, which is probably not a good look on a dandelion, but anyway. I'm just going over a few that I remember their effects off the top of my head. Multiply is also good for introducing shadows and stuff because it yes, okay, because it darkens the overall effect is darkening, but you must be careful to use a light color like set your brush to a lighter color, because if you set it dark, it goes dark very quickly. But these, I hardly ever remember what are good blending modes to use. I love color dodge, but its effect is very exaggerated, and you need to be careful when using it, because if you're shooting for realism, yeah, color dodge is far from realism. But mostly I just cycle through the blending modes until I like the results. If you're more professional, you could probably memorize what each of them do, but okay, there was something else which I wanted to tell. Yeah, I wanted to go over extraction, but I think we can do that in the compositing one. So I want y'all's opinion on two things. Let's leave the dandelion and go to a composite. This is the composite I made for the project. I thought we could try and make this in the class, but we might not be able to finish it during the class. So we can go over the most important parts, and then you could like finish it yourself if I give you the assets. Or we can go over, I had this idea, and if you ignore the horrible drawing I've made here, this is the basic idea. There'd be like clouds, a tree growing out of the clouds, with one second, with a cloud on top of it and like birds flying by in a sort of surreal landscape. And we could do this together. And this is a simpler one, and I think we should be able to finish it during the class. So which would you prefer, that we start from scratch and go over this one, or I show how I made this one?
I don't mind.
I would prefer the more complicated one. I'm not sure if I'll follow it all,
Okay.
but at least, you know, since it's recorded,
Yeah.
I could watch it over again to go over
Yeah.
any parts where I get lost.
Okay.
Mhm.
So is everyone else happy if we try going for this? We might not be able to finish
Sure.
it, but I'll try my best, depending how much time we have.
Fine.
Okay, so let's go for it then. Okay, let me just pull up a new document real quick. Actually, let me remember which size. 2400 pixels. Okay, to begin with, I just want to put a disclaimer that none of the pictures I used in here are my pictures, but they're all from the free stock photo site unsplash.com, where you can use photos and do whatever on earth you want with them without attribution. So photographers, I'm sorry, but I'm not attributing your pictures for this one, since I'm not making money off of it. Okay, let me just close my other stuff because this document gets very bloated and heavy. So let me just close everything else. I'm hoping that this composite can cover all of the topics. Sorry, can cover all of the topics that we want to cover, like from layer masks and blendings and some other stuff as well. So this is a picture I used for the base with some modifications. So let me just drag it in here and resize it. There you go. I'm just gonna shrink it all the way down, and then yeah. This is warping the image in a way you probably do not want to do if you were using your own photos and had a good photo, but okay, there you go. So I did not like the city skyline and this thingy in the way. It's rocks, but they kind of were disturbing with the image that I had in my mind. And so I patch tooled them out. So let's go over that real quick. We've got to grab the patch tool. And I'm just going to do this. The patch tool is one of the nicest inventions Photoshop. Oh goodness. Is one of the nicest inventions Photoshop has had in a while. Because it's content aware and it does its best to make your patches very smooth and nicely blended so they don't look like you Photoshop stuff out of it. And I'm using the Lasso tool for selection so I can modify it. And afterwards, I just switch to the patch tool and I'm gonna drag it out until it looks good. Actually, I dragged it upward more. Yeah, so I think that is a good point. And as you can see, it did a pretty good job actually. It did a much worse job when I was trying to do it for the first time and I spent so long trying to fix it. But I'm glad it did this just fine. And then I go to edit, and from here, hang on, let me do it again. Edit and then fade patch selection. And I bring the opacity down just a little bit to smoothen the edges some. And if you bring the opacity all the way down, it just undoes your entire thing. So you can play with this and see how much opacity you want. Normally, smooth it down a little bit. Decreasing the opacity a little bit smoothens out the edges. Do you see how it's leaving that faint edge along the edge,
Yeah.
along the edge, along the edge? But if I bring it down just a little bit, it helps with that. And then afterwards, I think I brought it down too much. But yeah, after that, I just manually patched it some more. I'm going to do this again because leaving a faint outline over here. Oh, I don't know why that happened. Also, for making the selections, I'm using the Lasso tool with a feather on it. So that makes a smoother selection and it helps with the patches. Actually, I'm going to increase the feather even more because it helps with the patch tool's smoothness. So it looks less photoshopped out. And then I'm going to switch to the patch tool and just drag this up again slightly. There you go. And this little bit of jarring edge that's left, I went to the spot healing brush and using a soft brush and type set to content aware, I just paint over it a bit. Yeah, it does not always do a very good job at it.
And you're doing that right on the layer, so you're doing it destructively?
I am doing it destructively, yes. It is not the best way to do it, but you could, what would probably be a better way to do it was to duplicate it and make all of the changes on a second layer. And once you're happy with everything, merge it down. In fact, that is what I'll do now. I'll be good. Okay, so I'm going to use the lasso tool and remove this as well. Initially, I had not, but then I liked the results better when I did it. So I'm just going to do it now and save us the time. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the patch tool. Oh, that's not the patch tool. There's the patch tool. And you could probably play around some with where you want to take the patch to. I have done this before, so I know that I got the best effects from dragging upward a bit. And I'm going to close the one which I've already done because it is very heavy. Yeah, so that's okay. I like the first one's results better. Yeah, this one took me a bit of doing over because it's very shaky. It's not being very good at the whole content aware thing. And I'm just going to do this section as well and bring it slightly up. As you can see, Photoshop is taking this area as a general reference, but most of the time it will blend it so that it looks less artificial. And most of the time it does a good job at the not artificial part, but sometimes it messes up and you have to manually fix it. And spot healing brush generally does the job. One thing I've noticed with spot healing is that it works better if you just do in small, quick sections, and running it over a larger section just makes it even worse than it was to begin with. I'm not sure why that happens, but it just does. This part, I'm just going to patch to it again. Slightly there. And that's a smooth thing. A handy tip is pressing Ctrl H hides the selection without deselecting it. So if you want to look at the edge, how it would look like without the selection, just do Ctrl H, and you can always bring it back and move on without having to do the selection over. And then what I did was I grabbed a soft brush, and I am using a pen, so I have the opacity set to pen pressure. If you do not have a pen, you can just manually set a lower opacity and go over it several times, which is what I used to do. And then I'm just manually painting in some of this thing over here and smoothing out the edge. You don't always have to do this, but sometimes the content over it just does not work out and it's best to do over it. And then I'm lowering this thing's opacity quite a bit because I just want it to be like a faint correction and not very noticeable. And then I'm going to grab the spot healing brush and just fix this little rock over here. Yeah. There are now stars in my water, but I can fix that later. That's from the patch tool. Okay, another thing you'll notice is over here, especially by the reflection, it is leaving weird outlines because it is not quite able to match the reflections. This one has done a much better job than the one I did yesterday in the other one, because that left horrible and I had to do the reflections over almost entirely. I'm using the Polygonal Lasso tool, which is being irritating. And I'm just going to select the part that is beneath the horizon real quick. Because if you have a part selected, it does not allow you to draw outside of the lines. I'm not very good at selecting stuff, but all I want to do, hang on, let's do this instead. Let's use the Marquee. Then I'm going to select and transform selection and just move it down enough that just the lower part is selected. Okay, and then I'm just going to grab a soft brush again and just manually patch in these reflections. I'm just color picking off of the lower portion, that is fine. And I'm just going to draw it in over these edges. I don't, you will probably not always have to do this, but if you're doing patch tools, then it sometimes the content error does mess up and you need to do it manually. But these are just like the barest of corrections. Oh. Well, that's cool, I guess. So this part is basically just as much time as you can give it, just make it better. And the main reason why I also did the selection was on a new layer. I'm just going to color pick this slightly darker color over here, where the horizon is untouched from our patching tool. And I'm just gonna bring some over on this side where I've done the patch tool. Because if you see here, especially the line between the horizon and the sky is very muddy. And there's stars in my water and everything. And it looks, since it's okay, especially since we're going for a surreal look, but I do not like how faint the boundary between my sky and the water or whatever this is underneath is. So I'm just with the horizon part selected, so I don't paint outside of it. I'm just introducing a little bit of dark edges to it so that the line is slightly clear. And I'm gonna keep this very faint because I don't want it to be drawing attention, just to be a subtle, like there is a horizon in this picture. Another note is that these pictures which I've got from Unsplash have already got all the processing that you do in Lightroom done by the photographer. I doubt this scene was as vibrantly colorful as it was in real life. But if you are using pictures you've taken yourself, you will do the Lightroom pre-processing, color fixes and everything before you get to this part. Or you can do it the compositing first and introduce color changes later. But personally, I prefer to do all the color corrections, basic pre-processing, post-processing, sorry, before I would bring into composite. Since I'm okay with these changes, I'm just going to merge it down onto the same layer. It's destructive, but at this point, I want to keep my layer count a little lower. And then I'm going to open up the next photo that I did, the next photo that I'm adding. Wait, I think I opened the wrong thing. I very much did open the wrong thing. I'm gonna have to let this one open before I can open the actual picture. Yeah, I opened the wrong thing, but that's okay because I wanted to check what I did next. Okay, yeah, I've got the sky next. Also, let's close Google Chrome because I've got too much stuff. Okay. Now I'm gonna open up the sky. If you notice, I have the sunset. I've got the sunset coming in from the side over here. So I'm just gonna go over the idea I had for this one image initially. I wanted to have like this tree sort of pulling the Milky Way galaxy down to it, and this clouds being led in by the flying manta rays, because I love flying manta rays. That's why. So I thought I'd have the Milky Way like coming down to the tree on this side, and the manta rays leading the sunset clouds in from this side, and that's why I've got the Milky Way and the clouds all together. So I'm just gonna grab the sunset and drag it over into here and just line it up. Actually, let's do one thing. Let's crop out the rocks. Yeah, let's crop out the rocks. I don't want the foreground rocks. And I am cropping the actual layer, but since I'm not saving it, it's not a problem. And I'm just going to drag it out a bit. Actually, I'm not even going to do that. It's fine. And then I'm going to change the blending mode to, I don't even remember what blending mode I had this on. I think it was Lighten. Yeah, it was on Lighten. And then I'm just gonna throw in a layer mask and using a soft brush with the hardness set all the way to 0%. I'm just going to mask out this edge of it because I want the clouds to remain limited mostly to the. Actually, let's do the easier way. Let's use the gradient tool. I want to keep the clouds limited to the left side because that is where the Milky Way will be. Oh goodness. The Milky Way galaxy will be ending. So I do not really mind them not being on this side. So I'm just going to push it back. And then I'm just going to quickly select the horizon line again. So that I can push it back from the horizon without it.
Can you just, sorry, could you just run through how you use the gradient tool, please?
The gradient tool, yeah, for the masks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just pop into a new layer and somebody wants to join. Okay, so for the gradient tool, basically, if you're using out of masks, you will just select a foreground color. So for example, I'm gonna choose a horrible pink color, and then I'm gonna choose an equally horrible green color, and say I want a pink to green gradient. It's a bad color combination, but anyway, then you just click and you will drag. And the longer you drag, the softer this middle part will be.
Okay.
And if you want a really hard middle part, then just don't drag at all that much. And then you can change the shape, so you can get like a radial gradient, circular, or you can get whatever this is. I don't know why I don't want to use that, but anyway. Or you can make it like a vertical bar instead, and a soft diffused diamond type thing. If you're using it for a layer mask, and if I were to click onto a layer mask, then you will see that my color choices automatically become black and white. And so then the only options you can play with are how soft you want the gradient, or the shape of the gradient. And then it will basically just, if you alt click on a mask, you can see the black white version of it. So if you shift drag, then you can see it's just going to be playing with the values between black and white. So whatever shades of gray it will fill in between, and you can make it very hard or soft or whatever.
Thank you.
Okay, I completely messed this one up.
Can you please explain like what the black and white on the mask mean?
Okay, so the black for the mask is just going to be concealing it. I gave earlier the example of blackout curtains. So if you pretend the mask is a window, then the darker the curtain you're dragging across it, the less light from that layer you're letting through. So wherever you're painting with black, it is like you're putting a curtain over that part of the window. And wherever you're painting with white, you're removing the curtain and letting the light from that layer through. Does that make sense?
So in easier language, can we say that the portions which are painted black, there the underneath layer will not be visible?
Yeah.
Or is it the other way
it's
around?
the other way around. The portion which is black, you cannot see that layer which is masked, and you can see what's underneath it. And the portion that is white, you cannot see what's underneath it, and you can see what you can only see the layer that's underneath and not the actual layer.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to delete this mask because I've completely messed it up, and just make a new one. I want a softish gradient, but I don't want it to go very far. And then I'm going to use the Polygonal Lasso tool and just select the part that is the lake and remove the sky from there. If we want reflections, we can put them in later. For now, I do not want the sky to come into my lake. And I'm just going to press Ctrl H so I can hide the selection. I want to actually make this part a little more bright, but there's less clouds on that side, so I'm just going to shift the entire layer back. If I turn off the mask real quick, you can see better what I did. I'm going to disable layer mask, and I'm basically just dragging the entire layer more that side. And then you can enable the mask again. A good way to check if your mask is working the way you want it to is simply to disable it and check the rest of the photo underneath, because sometimes it can be easy to just see the masked version and you forget how much of it you initially wanted to include. So I like just turn off and checking back. Okay, I think I'm going to stop fidgeting with these clouds for now. And then I can introduce my next galaxies. After that, I had more galaxies, yeah. Okay, I am going to duplicate these clouds real quick and delete this mask. I want to just have some more clouds up there, which are slightly brighter than these. Actually, the blending mode is fine. I'm just going to play with the layer mask. So I'm going to mask out this side and generally just restrict it to the upper side because the photo beneath does not have that many clouds up there. I'm just going to lightly mask it all. By the way, to quickly switch between your two colors, you can press X. The keyboard shortcut X will swap your colors. It is very handy when working with layer mask because you don't want to always go to your color slider and drag it back and forth. If you're looking for shades of gray though, then going to the color slider is a better option, obviously.
I have a question for you about the layers themselves.
Yeah.
So let's say that for our composites, we know that there are 5 photos that we want to work with. Now,
Yeah.
normally what I do, and maybe it's the wrong way, I do my adjustments in Lightroom,
Mhm.
and then I select the 5 that I want, and then I import them as layers into Lightroom, and then all 5 of my photos will show on the layer panel.
Yeah.
So is it better to import each of your photos on the layer panel to begin with? Or as in your case, you have a separate file of each element and you're just adding one photo at a time?
That is completely personal preference, I think. The reason I've got them all in separate is because I'm not importing them from Lightroom, in which case I have them all as separate pictures because I downloaded them. If I were importing them from Lightroom, then I would bring them all in together. And as I'm working on them, I can always turn off the layers that are above it if I need a better view of what's going on below. So in fact, just to illustrate that point, I can bring in multiple photos I used multiple galaxies for this portion. I use multiple galaxies, and so I'll bring all of those pictures in one go, and then I can show you how I would do that. So let me just open my galaxies. I used this galaxy, and I used this galaxy, and I used this galaxy.
Okay.
So before I bring them in though, I'm just going to crop them, the parts that I need, and we can pretend this is the adjustments I'd be doing in Lightroom. Since I don't need to do color fixes to them, I'm just going to do the cropping. So I'm cropping out the trees in this one. And in this one, I'm cropping out the lake because I have my own lake. I just need the galaxy. And this one can come in as is. So now I'm just going to drag the first one and just line it up. And then I'll close that. Then I'll drag in this one. Yeah, it's huge, but I can fix that. And we'll drag in the last one. Okay, so now I've got all 3 of them, and let me quickly do resizing. Okay, so now you can see I've got this layer on top and I cannot see it on the bottom, so I'm just gonna turn it off and then I can see what's beneath it. And I need to flip this one. So I'm gonna press Control T, which opens the transform controls. And then when you right click, I can rotate it. I rotate it 180 degrees. I want to rotate it 90 degrees. There you go. And I'm making sure I'm keeping the lighter part of my galaxy to the right because in my composite, that is where I want the light to be coming from. But you can adjust and rotate this as you would in your normal compositing if this was not what you're going for. And
but when you import from Lightroom, or even if you have a file and you import all your files into your layers,
yeah.
How do you decide the order of the layers? What should be on top? What should be on the bottom? If you want to mask out what's underneath, but show everything else that you've done before then,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't there a certain order that you have to add the layers?
Okay, so when importing Lightroom, you can, I think, choose the order it brings them in, but I'm pretty sure it brings it in alphabetical order, but you can always just drag layers around. So if it imports it in a way that, I'm just going to turn this one off for a sec. Say, for example, I had these 2 sky layers on top of the one that I did. Let me just turn the layer mask off real quick. So I imported these 2 photos in, right? And say I want this one, which is currently underneath, to be above it. I can just drag it up and then I can mask this one, for example, and say I want only the lake part to show and I want to hide the sky part. So I can just mask the sky. This is happening because I have a blending mode. Make that normal. Yeah, so now I can mask out the top layer. And if I don't like that order, I can always just drag them back and forth. So whatever layers you're masking, the layers that you want to mask the least will be at the bottom. And then as you mask, you will go up in the layers. So you can think of it as an object. If I've got a piece of paper and I put another piece of paper on top of it halfway, then you can imagine that is a mask of halfway. And then I could put a third piece of paper covering half of the second one. So the one that I want to always be showing will be at the bottom. So you can think of it as a background element.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
It does until I start working on it.
Okay, let me see if I can get a better example for that. Give me a minute. I will just re-import the one galaxy because I've cropped it the wrong way. So let me just fetch that one in real quick. It was this one. I wanna crop off some more of it. I'm gonna bring in the sides a little bit because I want this one for the galaxy part and less the surrounding sky. And then I'm gonna drag this over here. Okay. And there's one last galaxy I need to fetch in. So let's crop the trees out. Yeah, okay. So let me just rotate this one and then I will show you what I mean with the layers. If another way to access the transform things is just to go into image and then image rotation, you can rotate the image any way you want. Right, that's what I meant to do. I'll just stick to Control T. There you go. That's better. Okay, I'm just gonna resize this real quick. There you go. Okay, and now let's turn this layer off. So with the layer order, say for example that I want to, I will have these two galaxies and I want it such that this part of the galaxy shows underneath, but all of the rest of it should be from this galaxy. So I will put this galaxy, the second one above, and I'll drop a layer mask onto it. And then when I paint with the mask, I can review the galaxy underneath. And then this is how you determine your order is what do you want to hide and what do you want to show. So the thing that you want to hide a portion of will be on top so that when you mask it, the thing that you want to reveal is beneath it. If you were to have, for example, if I want to have this one, the second one, if I just delete the layer mask, if I want to have this one show and only completely show underneath and only a portion of this beneath one show, then I will drag it above so that when I mask it, I can reveal a portion of the one that's beneath. So you have to adjust it depending on which is the one that you want to be always visible and which is the one that you want to mask.
Okay, thank you.
Does that actually make sense or no?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit clearer. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm just going to delete the layer mask on that one. And what's it moving? Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Yeah, I just gotta check real quick what I did on this side because I'm a bit confused. Because I was just messing around so much yesterday that I'm forgetting the order I did things in. Okay, I think I've got it figured out. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw in a mask and remove these edges. Then I can play with the blending modes because the edges are distracting. For all of this masking work, I am using just a soft opacity brush, a soft opacity pressure brush. But you can play around whatever brush you use is mostly just which one works the best for you. There's no like right or wrong. For masks, I personally prefer to use just a soft with low opacity, with adjustable opacity. But whichever works for you is what you would prefer using. And I'm going to set this one's blending mode to soft light. Or yeah, I think soft light is okay. So it kind of just merges what's beneath it and what's around it. Why is my thing not fitting? There you go. And I'm also going to rotate this because it is not fitting with the galaxy that's underneath. And I want my galaxies to sort of bend around to where the tree would initially be. And I'm going to go Control T and warp and just introduce a little bit of Actually, let me do this with the layer mask off so I can see it properly. I just want to make the galaxies a bit more curvy, rounded. They're not actually this much in real life, but nothing about what I'm doing is real, so it's fine. I don't think flying manta rays are very real either. So I'm just gonna make it a bit more exaggerated in there. And then I'm gonna turn the layer mask on. One more thing to, do you see this little chain icon in between the mask and the layer mask?
Yeah.
So this will control whether whatever transformations you do to your main layer affect the layer mask. If you look here, I'm just going to select show the layer mask. If you see the layer mask also rounded and warped as I warp the main layer, if you were to unlink this, you can move the layer around irrespective of the layer mask. As you can see, I just dragged the layer out of the mask now. But as long as it is linked, if I drag the layer mask moves with it. So if you ever have a situation where you want an image within a certain area and you can move the image around within it, then you will do the masking and then you will unlink this. So then you can drag your picture around without it affecting the mask, or you can transform the picture without affecting the mask. Since I want my transformations to affect the mask, I'm leaving it linked. Okay, I'm just going to take a small 5-minute break. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Y'all can stare at the finished product meanwhile. I'm back. I'm just waiting since it seems a few other people also took a break. Okay, let's get going again.
Okay.
Let's stop staring at the, oh goodness, finished product. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with how this layer is going. So I'm gonna turn on the galaxy that's above it, and this one needs some rotation. And also I'm gonna flip it horizontally because I want the lighter part to be on the right. And if I'm rotating now, it ends up on the left. So let's flip it horizontal, and then I'll rotate it to match the curve that I want the galaxy to follow. And then I'm gonna mask it so that I don't have this edge. Bring the opacity up. So I don't want to mask too much of the actual galaxy, but I do want to get rid of the hard edge here. So I'm just gonna do that a little gingerly. And then I really don't mind if a lot of the extra starry part gets shaved away because the picture beneath it all has a lot of stars. So that's not the main reason I'm bringing in all of these. And then we change the blending mode. I'm gonna go with overlay for this one. And it is very strong, but I'm gonna lower the opacity of the layer as a whole after I adjust the mask. I'm just gonna take away some of the very strong blue part. And another thing about masking is that if you change the opacity of your brush, it will work as introducing shades of gray. So I could bring the opacity of my brush down to 50%, for example, and then I will be painting it in shades of gray, and so I can fine tune the mask a little more. I just want to add some more light here, and this is very strong in color, so I'm bringing the overall layer opacity down so that it's not quite so strong. And I want to just mask some of it away as well. And one more thing I am going to do is the lighting is conflicting a bit. The layer beneath is very orange on the left, but I want a slightly more bluer feel. So I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to click on the layer, which is all the way down. And then I'm going to add a color balance adjustment layer. And what this is doing is it's going to be beneath all of the other star layers I added. So when I do the color balance, it will not affect any of the layers that are above. So if I make it slightly bluer, and I will mask this over the section, and then I'm gonna go into the color mask and just add a gradient. So I want to limit this to the right side, which is the side that I want bluer. So I'm just going to add a very gradual gradient, and you can see that it's affecting only the base layer and only the right side. So if I were to have added this all the way at the top, would affect all of the star layers above as well, which is not very visible. It's not making much of a difference now because of the mask. But as you can see, the difference between adjusting the colors of all the galaxies and the pink clouds on the side, whereas when I had it down, then neither the galaxies nor the clouds were being affected. And I'm just going to enable the layer mask again. So always the best thing to remember with Photoshop layers is that what is on top is not affected by what is beneath it. So you can pile on all the adjustment layers you want beneath something. And as long as the layers which you don't want affected are above it, you will be good. You will not accidentally mess them up. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. I'm gonna enable I'm just gonna add one more adjustment layer, is the levels one. And I'm gonna shoot for a slightly darker color. And then I'm also going to put in the gradient on this side. I just want this limited to the left side, which I want to be the darker night side. If you look here, then I've got this section slightly more darker. And I've got like the light is coming in from the right, from the left, sorry. The light portion is the left, the dark portion is the right. So I just want to adjust the color slightly to match it. It's easier if you do it earlier than later. Okay, now I'm going to turn on my third galaxy. And I'm going to flip this one horizontal as well, because I want the lighter section on the left. And then I'm going to rotate it and bring it in over here. So the reason I'm using so many galaxies is just to gradually build up the colors. And some of them had patterns which I like to turn on the other ones. And so I can play with the placements. So you don't necessarily have to use so many. It just depends on what works for you. In this one, I like the results with this many. Most probably when you're doing a slightly more realistic composites or less on the surreal direction, you will not need so many. But I like surreal composites more than realistic ones. Also because I'm better at them. I suck at realistic composites. I'm also move it slightly up, and you can see it just reviewed a pesky edge over here. And then I'm going to change the blending mode. If anyone wanted proof that literally all I do is just cycle through them all and see which one I like, then here you go. Okay, I'm gonna try this one on screen. This screen is a slightly more lighter version of the color dodge that I showed you guys earlier. So it does brighten the colors, but it does not make them as saturated as color dodge does. And I'm also move this guy slightly more there and then warp it a little bit. There you go. I ran into an issue when I was doing the original yesterday that I ended up with multiple shooting stars. You see there's a shooting star over here, but that issue is not coming up yet, so I cannot show you how I fixed it. But basically I did a good deal of masking and clone spot healing removal and to get rid of the fact that there were multiple identical shooting stars, which is not very realistic at all. Okay, I'm gonna get a move on because I realize it's already 4:15 and I still haven't done the extracting part. But I did spend some more time fine-tuning the galaxies, but I think this will have to do for now. And I'm gonna show you how I extracted the tree. So this is the picture I used for the tree. I extracted the tree out of this. To begin with, I used so there are multiple ways you can select stuff, and I I'm gonna try and go over them over as many as I can. For this particular one, I went into select, and you go select by color range. And this one is very handy because it does not actually select by the colors as we see them, but more like the black and white values. So for high contrast things, like this tree is very high contrast against the background. So for high contrast things, it works okay. With low contrast things, you will be spending a lot more time just trying to fine tune the range of what it should select than actually selecting anything at all. So with extracting anything, you just have to see which is the part that works best for you. This has a lot of different options. It is a very versatile tool. I'm bringing the range down here and I checked the box that says localized color clusters. Because if I keep this unchecked, you'll see that it is actually selecting the mountains and trees on this side as well. You can see the red part is the unselected part. So you can see it's selecting the trees are selected, the hills selected, everything is selected. Obviously, that's not what we want to do. If you check localized color clusters, it brings the area down, and then you can adjust by range just how local it should be. A little bit of the hill being selected is inevitable because it is very close to the tree, and I don't want to sacrifice the tree selection for the hill. So we'll go back and manually remove that. So I'm just gonna try and add in some of these sections. Okay. So it's selecting too much of the hill, so I'm selecting the minus eyedropper and I'm just gonna select the hill and that removes it and whatever that is. Okay, that takes too much off. So at this point, you just wanna go back and forth between selecting and deselecting colors and just trying to include as much of your subject as possible. And once again, this one only works good again in things with high contrast. And if I zoom out, you can see a good deal of this hill is selected as well. So I'm just going to try and remove it. It's taking a lot of the branch away with it. Well, there wasn't a whole lot of branch to begin with, so I'm just going to try and select the branch again. Yeah, okay, it's bringing in a lot of hills, so I'm going to go back and manually select that. And then I'm going to see if I can remove the thingy. Well, no, it's taking way too much of the tree. Okay, we'll go back into the manually. When you click OK, you will see that you've got the selection here. I'm going to duplicate the layer and drop in a mask. If I turn off the layer underneath, you can see that there's very little of the tree actually selected. It's very fuzzy and transparent, and there's hills here, and most of the branches are gone. So I'm going to just click on the mask and pull up the select and mask menu. This is one of Photoshop's greatest inventions that came with the latest Photoshop versions. Not latest, I mean, it's been there for as long as the Creative Cloud versions have been. But when I initially began doing background extractions and stuff, this feature was very primitive. But now it has a lot of different options. And the best of them is this little thing, this little brush, which is called Refine Edge. And it does the magic work for selecting lots of small things very quickly. And currently, obviously, because I want to show you guys, it is doing absolutely nothing. Yeah, it is very much doing absolutely nothing. Okay, I'm not sure what's wrong. Is it even selected? Yeah, okay, let's try again. Maybe it is doing something. It does not seem to be doing anything. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is select the branches. It is not selecting anything. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. So that one works. So why is this one not working? Yeah. Okay, it appears we have a problem. Okay, so let's go over this section instead first, and I can see what's wrong with it. You can see there's a lot of red in my tree's trunk. So I'm choosing a soft brush for this one. I don't want a very hard one. And this acts like a normal brush. You can choose plus or minus. The part that you paint over is going to get selected. The part that you don't paint, you can then press the minus one to choose parts which you do not want selected. And I'm actually going to switch to a harder one. This is way too soft. I'm actually going to go all the way hard. And just paint in. You have to be careful with this one. Use a small brush and just go over it. This is the real time consuming part. Extracting this paint even the first time was night. Extracting this tree was very painful. Not extracting this paint was very treeful. It's a bit hard to see. You can increase the opacity of the red overlay, and you basically just want to get rid of all the red portions from the trunk. This part is a bit time consuming, but as extractions are a very major part of compositing, I'm just going to go over it a bit and then see if I can get that brush to work again. I'm using a hard one because trees are inherently something that are hard, and you want to just be careful that your thing does not become choppy by staying within the trees thing. The main reason why I think composites become choppy is when you accidentally end up including very faint traces of the original background, and when you then move it into a new the new background, those faint edges look very out of place. So for the very base of this tree, I'm using a soft brush again because I don't want to have like a hard edge along the base. I just want a soft gradual fade. So when I move it into my new document, I have an easier time of blending it. And then I'm just going over everywhere you see red, basically. The color range select that we did initially, it does a good job of selecting it, but often it leaves these patches where you think it should select it, but it does not actually do it. I don't know what I just pressed. Okay, I did not mess things up. This part is tedious. You just have to manually go over a lot of it. So while Photoshop select features are very good, they are not always very good. And you can see there are lots of this stuff which it should have selected, but it does not often do it. A little bit of roughness will not matter because for this particular one, the tree is a lot in the distance and some slight messiness will not make a huge difference, but still I want it to be as clean as possible. If you're painting and you press Alt, it will shift to the one to erase, to deselect, sorry. And not, I don't know why that happened. My brother is sitting in the chair in front of me and laughing every time I make a mistake. He's being very rude. Okay. Let's try the fancy brush again. There you go, now it's working. Okay, do you notice how it is picking up all of these thin little branches and selecting them? And these would be a pain to do manually, but I'll just zoom in so you guys can see properly. So this is called the Refine Edge brush, and it is very good at picking up these thin, small details and selecting them. So if you had to manually do all these branches, I think I would never get around to doing it. I don't know if somebody has the patience to do it, but yeah, I just use the Refine Edge. This brush also has a lot of settings. You can see here it says color aware or object aware. If you have something which is like a recognizable object, you can click the object aware mode and it does some pretty good object detection. But as this particular tree has good contrast against the background, I'm going to stick to color detection. In fact, this Refine Edge brush is very good also at picking up these little areas which are left deselected when they should be selected. So it's basically a good idea to go over the edges with it, but you have to be careful because it is, as you can see, it is selecting a lot of the background hill as well. So I'm just gonna press Alt and remove some of that, and then go in with a smaller brush to try and select the twigs without selecting all the hill. There you go. And I'm also just going to switch to a brush and remove this lumpy object that is over here that looks like a duck. I don't know if it's actually a duck or no, but I don't want a duck in my finger. A lot of the reflection also got selected, so I'm just going to zoom out and deselect that. Okay, and then another really nifty feature in the select and mask is this checkbox, Decontaminate Colors. It is very handy for getting rid of the little edge that you see in the background often, especially if you're extracting stuff with a blue sky behind it. Almost everything you select will have a blue edge to it. It is very hard to manually get rid of the blue edge. But Decontaminate Colors shifts the colors around such that there's no blue edge anymore. So if you're extracting anything with from blue skies, especially, make sure to check the Decontaminate Colors. And there are different output modes here as well. You've got a new layer with layer mask. You can output to selection or a layer mask if you don't check Decontaminate Colors. Or you can make a new layer, you can export it to a new layer with a layer mask, or you can even send it to a new document altogether, your selection. I do not want to send it to a new document. I'm just going to keep it to a new layer with layer mask and click OK. If I turn off the background, and I'm just going to throw in a solid white background so we can see. You can see it has done a very good job of selecting all of the thin branches, which is something I'd never be able to do manually. So Refine Edge can be good for that, but here's the downside. There are ghost hills behind it. So for this, I messed around with it a lot, trying to figure out how to get rid of them. And in the end, it turned out that the color range select, which we did initially, actually removed them just fine. So with some careful selecting, you can select all of these little ghost hues. And there are little white portions in between here as well. So I'm just using the eyedropper plus and selecting all of this. There is not the branches, where there are gray areas in between from the refined edge. And if you just select them all, you can remove them easily. Although I'm going to make sure not to accidentally remove portions of the tree with it. Okay, so once it looks like to me that I've got a good area which is selected, I'm just gonna go into the layer mask and alt backspace with black selected. So if you look carefully, you can see that it has removed a lot of the gray ghosty areas without that much manual deletion. But these areas that are left, I had to do them manually. So just with on the layer mask, soft brush and set to black color. And I'm just going to choose a hard brush for this one because there are no edges we have to be careful of. Don't forget to deselect. Just erase all of those. Okay. Now, I do not want clunky layers with layer masks in my composite. So I'm going to make a duplicate of this and I'm going to apply the layer mask. And when you do apply layer mask, it serves the same purpose as an eraser does, as in whatever areas were masked, it will delete them. So if I were to turn the thing off, you can see it has now got a transparent background altogether and there is no mask. So this is destructive, which is why I made a copy of it first. So if I ever have to edit, I have got a version with the mask which I can edit. Another thing I found out that if I stack 2 copies of the final, it makes a better effect. So after applying the layer mask, I copied it, merged it, and this is the version that I'm going to take into my composite. And now we've got a tree here. Something
Aisha, I'm seeing a totally black screen.
really. Has it been black for a while or did it just become?
Since you tried to bring the tree layer in.
Oh.
Is everybody else seeing the whole picture or are other people seeing black?
I only see black. Yeah.
It just turned black a little bit ago.
Is it black now
Yeah.
or no?
Yes.
Yes.
It's still black. Wait.
Completely black, like a black sheet of paper.
Okay. Let me try stop sharing and try resharing my screen. Can you see it now? Or is it still black?
Still black.
Still black. What about now?
Still black.
Still black.
Still black. That's weird. Because okay, let me try something else. They work now?
No.
No. Oh. I really have no idea what's wrong. Let's try sharing a portion of my screen. I don't know how that works, but is it working now?
No.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's head to Google and ask why screen sharing stopped working. Give me a minute.
Okay.
Because I have no idea what's wrong.
When I check on share screen at the bottom, it says the host has disabled screen sharing.
Yeah, that's probably because I kept it so only I can screen share.
Right, but it says you've disabled it.
Yeah, it's no, that's like it's disabled for everyone but the host. Let's see. Let's try again. Maybe it will work now. Did my screen appear?
It
No.
just says started screen sharing, but it's not.
Doesn't appear. That's weird. I really have no idea. Apparently you will have to, I can try restarting the call or restarting my computer. Apparently I will have to restart my computer.
Okay.
Let's try one last time. Otherwise I will apparently have to restart my computer. Any luck?
No.
No. Okay, I guess I'll have to okay, I wonder if we can maybe split it into 2 sessions because it's almost 4:45 now. And if I sit and restart my computer, then I will not be able to come back online for a while. So I wonder if we can schedule a session a bit later and continue with it again. Would you guys be interested in that?
That would be great.
I
Okay.
would.
What day? Let's see.
Can we do it before the challenge is due?
I can try. I'm not free Friday, nor it's also the timing because if I do in the morning, then nobody can join. I have to do in the afternoon. Friday I'm busy. Saturday. I wonder if we can do Saturday.
Saturday would be good for me.
Would it be good for Saturday? Same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you
Just
start an hour later?
huh?
Could you start an hour later?
Start an hour later. I think the most later I can start is around 3:30 because if I want even an hour or so, then beyond 5:30, I have other stuff to do.
Okay.
Okay, can I post on the Facebook the same post which we did this call on? I'll just post on that the timing for Saturday, and we can try and go for Saturday instead, if I'm free on Saturday. I'll try and squeeze it in before the challenge ends.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll let you know on the Facebook group for Saturday then. And I'll post this
Okay.
recording up for whatever we have, so you guys can go over it meanwhile.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for
We
coming.
have we have a lot to work with so far.
Yeah, I'll post the recording up as soon as possible and put the link on that same Facebook group, Facebook post in the group. Maybe you can save it so you can get to the post easier. Save the post, I mean. So then for Saturday's class or whatever, I'll also post everything in the comments there, so I don't spam the group. So I'll just confirm there then.
Okay.
Excellent.
Hey, thanks for coming, y'all. And
Thank
see
you
you on
so much
Saturday, I
for doing
guess.
the workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.